Hello and welcome to this week's edition of No Access Required. Here in the UK it's hot, 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 and well, I'm wearing a shirt to honour that. It's sweltering. Valve released the prices for the Steam machine, and one has to ask oneself at this point, with the benefit of hindsight, whether they released the controller on its own, not just because it was ready first, but because they knew the Steam machine was going to have a hefty price tag attached to it. I, for one, thought it was such an engaging proposition, this new computer console that came with a purpose-built controller and a purpose-built VR headset. I felt that was such a great value proposition, they would just reveal it all together. Oh, you can have this bundle, this bundle, this bundle, this bundle, this bundle, and these are the prices. When this happened 7 months ago, we were full of hope, full of speculation, and now there's no need to speculate unless you're still interested in the VR headset, which, based on the prices of the console, computer thing, well, brace yourself, eh? So the prices are expensive. I'll put a little card up here so you can see them. So here in the UK, the 512GB version will cost you £879. That same 512GB version with a Steam controller will cost you £938. The 2TB standalone version of the console, which, let's face it, everyone's going to want, is going to set you back £1,149. And if you want a controller with the 2TB version, £1,208. Yep, it's eye-watering. And I have to say, unfortunately, it was kind of where I expected it to be. Now, in my previous speculations, I waxed lyrical about the pricing and the various reasons it might come in at various different price points. But the hardware apocalypse happened, and everything changed, and all for the worst. AI is bending technology companies over and giving them the full length. And we as customers have to pick up that price increase. What we can say, however, is, regardless of my previous speculations, the current price points that the Steam machine has released for us are entirely unwelcome. And many other commentators, like myself, have weighed in on this. I watched last night online as the various prices came in. And I felt as though I was being gently flicked about the sack area. And I knew at that point this was going to hurt everybody where they could least afford to be hurt. In the wallet. Times are tough, and technology is being sold currently at a premium. Valve themselves stated this wasn't their preferred price point, and when other people have done the math, they've realised that the actual price point that it would have come in at, had the RAM apocalypse not happened, would be closer to $700 to $800, which would have been perfect. But now you're having to pay more for a machine which isn't as powerful as a base PS5. Linus Tech Tips has had the machine for quite some time now and managed to give us a rundown of the various performance parameters, and overall he was a little bit disappointed, to say the very least. It wasn't all bad, because in reviews you have to find the positives, and there were some, but it seems not where it counted. I watched other reviews and they weren't quite as downbeat. However, the same thing kept coming up, and that was price against performance. And that appears to be the message we're all receiving from those who've had hands-on with the machine. Good, but not great, and certainly not good at that price point. So, is the Steam machine dead in the water? Yes, and of course, no. Enthusiasts will pay for this machine. It is, after all, a bit of a chimera, a bit of a unicorn. In terms of consoles, it's a real piece of history, and as such, has its customer base. But if you're a person looking for consoles for their significant other or their family, and you happen to peruse online the various prices, and the other myriad details that go into buying a console these days, you'll find that the Steam machine, although being the newest, isn't quite the value proposition you might be looking for. And as such, the console, I fear, won't make much of an impact in the wider consumer market. When you have Xbox and PlayStation and Nintendo to choose from, the Steam Deck seems like too little for too much. And talking of Xbox, PlayStation and Nintendo, they must be breathing a huge sigh of relief now. They know they've dodged a bullet. They can relax. They can rest on their laurels. At this price point, there's no longer any need to try. And that's a shame. The unintended consequence of the RAM apocalypse. In a free and open market, competition is good for everybody. And in this case, Steam have just priced themselves out of that competition. Now, I've always been a bit flip-floppy on whether or not I would actually buy one of these consoles. I want one, but I wanted it to be better than it actually is. I wanted the price to be less than it actually is. I also wish I didn't have vertigo, didn't have to wear spectacles, and was a taller man. But hey, when life gives you lemons, the Steam machine has failed its first test, and that is pricing against performance. But there's more to this story, there always is, than meets the eye. Valve's offering with the Steam machine, tied to the Steam back catalogue, the huge catalogue of games that it has, is the real value proposition. Also, as a side note, you don't have to pay to play games online with it. But it can't be denied, the vast array of games that the Steam machine has at its disposal is very tempting. But the price of admission to that bountiful garden might prove too steep. I, like most people who watch their pennies, want to have their cake and eat it. I'm used to getting a deal. And for me, this isn't a deal. This is a console computer thingy release that's being held hostage by circumstance. And as I'm fond of saying on this channel, we the gamer always end up paying. Do let me know what you think in the comments below. Do like, subscribe and share, it really would help the channel. And until next time, bye bye.